I'm Frederick Gerten, and I'm the filmmaker.
And I'm Leilani Farha, and I'm the advocate.
And I just asked you if you're ready to go, and then you were like almost not ready to go. How are you over there? Is it like in early morning?
It's early morning, and I have been working so very hard until the wee hours. So a little sleep deprived over here, all in the name of the right to housing.
You sacrifice your sleep for people's homes. Yeah, you're a sleep-deprived hero. Sad, but true. But Leilani, we're entering into summer. I mean, I actually been in the sea swimming every day. It's so nice here in Malmö right now. And now people start to think, can we travel? Mm-hmm. How are we going to stay? Is it the Airbnb season coming up? Do we have an issue with Airbnb?
Well, of course we have an issue with Airbnb. Most cities have an issue with Airbnb because, and it's not just, let's be clear, it's not just Airbnb, though they may be the most aggressive, but it's the short-term rental platforms eating up long-term housing stock.
This is something we're going to talk about today. But first, you were about to share some news with us.
Well, it might not be news to you, but it's news to me. We know our friends Blackstone, and we talk about them periodically in this podcast and in Push the Film. What some people don't know is that Blackstone used to be part of a partnership with what is now known as BlackRock. And we don't talk about BlackRock so much. We've really been focusing on the stone, not the rock. But I found out just yesterday that BlackRock is very active as a shareholder in a lot of the purchasing of apartments that we talk about. And for example, we've talked about the merger of Deutsche Wohnen and Vonovia in Germany, now a mega landlord. And the major shareholder of those two entities is BlackRock. So we have to keep them under our magnifying glass.
We should. And Vonovia is then this big German financialized housing company.
Yes.
All coming totally from the financial sector. And they were the ones who bought Blackstone's investment in Sweden.
That's right,
Hembla. They bought
yes.
And then they bought another big one called Victoria Park. So this Vonovia is the biggest private owner of Swedish suburbia or low income housing.
Right. So BlackRock is in your backyard.
They are totally. They are on my street, I tell you. So it's and this is what we see. It's like in every street there's a building owned by someone who's sitting really, really far away. That's scary. But now we're going to fly to Amsterdam, the city of canals. And we had a beautiful journey to Amsterdam with Push, because Push was presented at the world's biggest and most important documentary film festival called IDFA in Amsterdam. And IDFA gave us such a beautiful placing. We played at the Carré Theater by the Amstel River, and we had 1,300 people in the audience. And that showing was in cooperation with a big newspaper called Volkskrant. And it was the editor of the newspaper who presented the film on stage. But there was also a housing man from Amsterdam who was making a review to Volkskrant about the film. And now we're going to meet Gert Bakker, who is a consultant at an NGO called WOON, who works for the city of Amsterdam. Welcome to Pushback Talks. Tell us about your work at WOON.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks. Yes, I work with kind of an NGO. It's called WOON. WOON, it means like living on Dutch, and we support all residents in Amsterdam on housing issues. So people are looking for a place to live, for a room or for an apartment. Sometimes there are very old people who have problems with paying the rent and maybe threatened to get kicked out. Sometimes young students coming to Amsterdam. Loads and loads of expats these days coming to Amsterdam. Also due to Brexit, we have an inflow of loads of expats. And yeah, we help them. We give them advice on housing, but also we look at their contracts. Are there legal rent contracts, or are they? Is the landlord trying to scam them or rip them off? We look into the rent price, the service costs, the maintenance of the building is still properly well maintained. Yeah, everything on housing in Amsterdam, and we are paid by the municipality to help out people, and we do that for free, of course. Then.
So cool. So you reviewed Push, and then you saw it at the theater. It's also been on Dutch TV several times.
Yes.
So why is Push relevant for you and Leilani's work relevant for you in Amsterdam?
Yeah, it's relevant because it gives some insight on what's happening behind the scenes of the real estate business market. A lot of tenants in Amsterdam, well, they pay their rent to a local agency, but they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So it's good that we have some more understanding of the international trade of housing. Blackstone is a big one. There are several big ones, like also from Sweden, we have Heimstaden, and they're buying loads of properties. It's also because of the last government we had. They went to real estate markets in Europe and they said, well, buy Dutch social housing, and big real estate investors, they took that opportunity, and government made it very profitable for them. So what the previous government did, they changed the law by changing the rent contracts. Now more than 50% of the new tenants, they get a temporarily renting contract for the time of 2 years, and then you have to move out again. So that means that real estate landlords, they're very flexible. They can have their houses empty within a couple of years. So that's new. And another thing that previous government did was to liberalize rent prices. We had a very strong rent control. If you paid too much rent, you could go to the sort of a rent tribunal, a sort of court case kind of thing. But less and less tenants have the right to have that rent protection. So now they just have to pay whatever the market wants them to pay. So an apartment in Amsterdam, which was maybe €600 maximum 10 years ago, is now rent out for €2,000.
Oh my God.
And if that landlord decides to put in 4 students, then he makes a calculation, well, each student can pay €600 for a room, so then it's 4 times 600. So an apartment which was maximum €600 10 years ago is rented out now for 2,400. So that was all done in like I said, previous government. So they liberalized the very strong rent-controlled, in Dutch, volkshuisvesting. That means housing for all. And that was liberalized, sold and marketed out. And then the Blackstones and also other internationally organized big corporations came to the Netherlands. This film Push helped to give this understanding, because me and other people working in this business, we know this, but the film made it accessible for everybody. So that's very good.
Yeah, and Leilani, it seems like it's a very scary situation in Amsterdam.
Sure, it sure is, and it echoes and reminds me completely of Ireland, which is one of the most financialized housing markets in the world. Round Hill Capital is another one of the big actors that also appears in both Ireland and in Amsterdam. And they, I think, are also contributing to this idea that when you group students, for example, into a residence, then you can charge every student a huge sum. And of course, our young people are under such siege already. You know, they're contending with so much. It's so predatory on young people and, of course, on their families, whom they expect will help pay these exorbitant rents. It's really phenomenal to hear this rent increase you mentioned from 600 euros to 2,000 in just a few years. When Frederick and I were in Amsterdam for the screening of Push, I visited one of the social housing complexes where it was trying to be sold off, but the residents were really strong and pushing against it. And I met with them. It was actually an empty social housing unit, I believe. And we met there, and they were kind of like squatting, trying to really resist the sale of this unit. And I believe they were successful. But of course, I then later transitioned out of being rapporteur, and I never heard exactly what happened.
Gert, tell us about the push back. How do you defend yourself? What is your tactics against this? That's what we call pushback.
Well, a lot of people just can't live in Amsterdam anymore. I would love to see people getting more organized to organize themselves to make a strong fist against this housing crisis. We have some actions, of course, going on. Like Lani said, she went when she visited Amsterdam. She went to this kind of squad. This group is still active every single Saturday. They go to an apartment owned by social housing corporations, but who are those apartments are getting sold to the highest bidder, of course. So this group is going to those places with banners and trying to mobilize the neighborhood. Mobilization is still very difficult. I don't know why exactly, because Amsterdam is changing so fast right now. Even if you have a good income and you have a partner with a good income, just like a regular income, you can't buy anymore in Amsterdam. Renting is even more expensive than buying a place. But well, if you can't buy, well, you can't rent a place anymore. It's just getting too high, the prices. So Amsterdam is changing rapidly, but we are in a serious crisis right now. And there is not a solution. We just have elections. They're trying to form a new government, but the right wing parties, they won, and they still believe, they have this dogma of market. And I think that it's just this market who turned us into this crisis. So they took away rent control, they took away rent protection, and that's why we are in this crisis.
This is scary. It's getting to be a very depressed report from Amsterdam right now. We have to cheer up a little bit. So
yes.
The city of Amsterdam has a different government, and I understand that they are trying to like push back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know that the city of Amsterdam has been striking hard against Air BnB. And can you tell us about the Air BnB regulations that have been put in place in Amsterdam?
Yeah, like 10 years ago, we at WOON we got the first complaints from residents like, hey, my neighbors left, and now it's kind of an hotel. Well, so that were the first experiences we had with Airbnb, and we got more and more complaints. So we tried to organize that to gather all those complaints, because the municipality didn't see it yet at that time. So we made this just very simple internet form, and people could gave us some data of which addresses were rent out as illegal hotels. But it was, at that time, we were almost the only one who were critical. Everybody was, it's so good and disruptive, is hip and nice and happening. And even the city, the municipality, they thought, it's very good that also the people in residential areas can profit from tourism. And so not all the money goes to the hotels, but normal people can enjoy some money as well. And then the municipality didn't want to fight Airbnb, but made an agreement, a memorandum of understanding it was called, in 2014, and that meant that Airbnb had a very good PR moment, because now they were, well, whitewashed in Europe because they were an official partner of the municipality of Amsterdam, and Airbnb didn't do, well, almost nothing. The only thing they said they would do is to collect the tourist tax. So a couple of years they paid like 5 million euros to the municipality, and therefore Airbnb could do, well, whatever they wanted. But of course there were also rules, because what was happening, a lot of landlords, also slumlords and Dutchy cowboy type landlords, they bought up places, houses, tried to kick out the tenants, put in some bunk beds, and started hotels. Well, of course you cannot start a hotel in a dwelling, in housing. So the city made rulings like, okay, you can maximum rent out a house for 60 days a year. Right now that's 30 days, to a maximum of 4 people each time. And right now you need a permit from the city. If I want to rent out my property on Airbnb this weekend, I need a permit. And I also have to tell the municipality, like, this weekend I will rent it out to 4 people. So the city will also know how many days I've rented it out. And after 30 days, they say, oh, you can't rent out anymore. Another latest thing that is from this year, new national law was introduced that if you want to rent out on Airbnb or different platforms like Booking.com, a very big Amsterdam-based company as well, you have to apply for a registration number, and you have to put that in your ad, because Airbnb never tells any addresses. So it was difficult for the city to maintain the laws, because they didn't know at which addresses were rented out exactly. Like in Amsterdam, there are 20,000 addresses on the Airbnb website alone. So, but anonymously addresses. Airbnb did not want to share that information. So the city said, like, yeah, how can we maintain the rules? So with this registration number, the city can kind of control it. So we have to see if this will work. I think it's well, getting better and better. We did see, after the municipality gave some really dodgy landlords fines up to 300,000 euro, that we have less big illegal hotels. So not the big canal buildings with 60 beds in them, like totally illegal hotels. We don't see that anymore, but we still have thousands of just normal apartments, normal flats. No one is living there anymore. We still have a very big lack of housing in Amsterdam. And then it's very harsh to see that we still have thousands of apartments. No Amsterdamer living there anymore, only tourists coming in and out.
Of course, this is how it starts, like a friendly relation. And I totally see what Gert says. I also loved Airbnb in the beginning, and because I was actually then staying in people's homes. And suddenly when you book an Airbnb, you say, okay, but there's nobody living here. And then you see other tourists in the next door and the next door and next door. And there might be then a neighbor, an old lady who's been living there, but she looks like, okay, not one more. And of course, in a city like Amsterdam, where a lot of people come to party, it also means that it's also, you also have 10 young Brits who are partying all night in a place where you live with your family.
Don't forget the Swedes, but But indeed, it doesn't mix residential and a hotel function in one building on one staircase. It just doesn't mix.
I think our listeners might like to hear about the scale of this in Amsterdam. I read at one point that 1 in 15 2018 dwellings in Amsterdam showed up on Airbnb. I read another statistic that said that in 2018, there were 30,000 Airbnb listings, and that was up from just 7,000 a few years, I think 4 years earlier.
And Amsterdam is also quite a small city. It's a city of 900,000 people. And then a lot of people, want to hang out in the center of Amsterdam where the old canals are. And I've been coming into Amsterdam for years and years and years and years, and suddenly you notice that there are no local people there anymore, or very few. So it's an extreme change of the city.
Yeah, and the scale indeed, it's massive. Tens of thousands. The last figure I heard was 20,000 dwellings on Airbnb from only Amsterdam. It went down, of course, a bit due to Corona, but now if you go to the center of the city right now, it's like busy as never before. So that's back again. The profits to be made on if you have a property in the center of Amsterdam, the profits they can make by illegally renting it out in the center you can get like a €300 a night for an apartment. Well, even if you have a 70% rent out rating, you make thousands of euros, which you cannot make by renting it out to Amsterdammers. So yeah, a lot of landlords, they buy these properties and they know, okay, I'm illegal, renting it out illegally. I'll pay the fines, whatever. I'll just try it. And now we have neighborhoods. We did see it last year when the lockdown was here as well. Everybody was inside their homes. And it was dark. It was March last year, March of April, the lockdown, everybody at home. There were some neighborhoods and there were no lights burning on the red light district in the the center also. It used to be also a residential area and bars and cafes, of course. But now there were no lights at all. So what was that? So there are no people living anymore there.
Leilani, I know that you are a friend of capitalism, and you say so in Push. You have no problem with capitalism, and that's fine. So why shouldn't somebody owning a house in Amsterdam being able to make money out of it? It's like you invest some money, there's a return of your investment. Isn't that how it should work?
Well, I think Gert already told us of how it's damaging our cities and our communities and in fact, damaging the very thing that people are traveling for, that authentic experience of walking through a neighborhood and seeing local people and local life. That's what Airbnb was originally selling. And now they've undermined their own business vision so that you're walking through cities, as Gert said, with no lights on, no locals, it's only touristed. They're becoming, Saskia Sassen says cities are becoming monocultural. You could be at, any city, anywhere, they're all the same. And it's actually also just not fair. Local people should be able to live in the cities where they're working.
But back to my question then, so that you don't think people with money have the right to just make money. They should also, what do you ask from them, the people who own these buildings?
I actually think they should stay away, to be perfectly honest. I think the old model of Airbnb was fine. The very original idea where, if you think a family struggling, a young family struggling, and just a few extra dollars by renting a room a few days a year could be very helpful. I think that model is actually cool. I do think that's cool and happening. But I don't think big investors should come in. They have no stake in the community. They're from New York or Singapore or who knows where. No, I think that there have to be laws in place to push them back. And one of the things I wanted to mention about Amsterdam is being very aggressive, in fact, with Airbnb since the ending of that memorandum. They actually tried to ban Airbnb in 3 central areas. And as I understand it, the city of Amsterdam lost in court, but has appealed that decision. And the city councillor responsible for housing said that, I really loved it. He's really strong. He said, I don't think this judgment is rational. It's not based on good reasoning, and we're appealing. So I don't know where you think that's going to go, Gert, but it's pretty aggressive, and I think it's fantastic.
So a legal fight between the city of Amsterdam and Airbnb is happening right now. Gert, what do you say?
Yeah. Finally, good. I would love to have seen this 8 years ago, but okay, then Airbnb was hip and happening. Indeed, Amsterdam is fighting in court against Airbnb. They want to have a ban in some areas where only tourists are staying in illegal dwellings or illegal hotels. And that was, of course, the first step. If the municipality would have won this, maybe other neighborhoods would have been banned as well then as tourist neighborhoods.
Leilani, I was also reading in a big Dutch newspaper about our friends Blackstone being very active. I guess it's also really, that Gert-Jan talked about before, that they're coming in, but it seems to be a big story.
It does seem to be a big story and an ongoing story. It's not going away, and I don't know if Amsterdam is the same as every other city right now with the pandemic, where there are assets to be purchased, and it's a very fertile ground for these big financial actors. They're really on the move in so many cities. I'm trying to track. It's almost impossible to track because there are new massive acquisitions around the world right now as we speak. I don't know if you're feeling that heat, Gert, in Amsterdam from the big financial actors like Blackstone, Roundhill, etc.
Yeah, we do see that, but not in the last, Corona year. So this happened in 2019, 20, 2018. Like Blackstone, for example, as I said, they bought properties in Amsterdam, housing, dwellings for 500 million euro. So that is a lot. They bought thousands of places. And what they do is they try to renovate it, and therefore they're going to talk to the tenants living there, and they say, do you want to move out? Or they try to get it empty, and then if they'll renovate and rent it out again to students, groups of students, so they can have the maximum profit. Last week there was an action in Amsterdam. An empty property was squatted by a feminist anarchist squat group. Police kicked them out same day because squatting is not legal anymore in the Netherlands. And it was also a property by Blackstone. People do see, what's going on and who owns the city? That's a very actual recent question again, like who owns the city? That so much money is coming in is also due to government policy, because they wanted to break the power of the social housing corporations. So housing corporations have to pay a tax right now of 2 billion euro a year for having social housing. Because if you have free market housing rentings, then you don't have to pay the tax. So there's this from government a fight against social housing corporations. They want less social housing, and the government want more just free market enterprise corporations.
It seems to be like a big ideological battle in the Netherlands, and
there's a big shift. Yes.
And here in Pushback Talks, we had a guest a few months ago, a former Dutch foreign minister, but now the vice president of the European Commission, Frans Timmermans. Listen to that interview. He's like a leading European social democrat, and his language was very clear. First of all, he said that it was a mistake. We, the Social Democrats, made a mistake that we opened up the market too much. and now we need more regulations. And so he was kind of clear. Is that, can you see this, the language is clearer within the Social Democrats and other progressive?
Well, after the Social Democrats made way for the market and the third way, etc., they lost all elections and they're minimalized. Social Democrats are gone. So they ruined themselves by giving all power to the markets, and now Timmermans can say we feel sorry doing that. So yeah, but most people in the Netherlands feel even more sorry because the Social Democrats are gone and all market loving parties they are growing, and also on the extreme right, and they are also not very social housing minded.
You sound like a bit pessimistic, Gert-Jan. Is there any hope for your country, or should we just?
Oh yeah.
We could maybe we'll let the ocean in again and the sea could take back the Netherlands. Is that a solution?
I have to think about this one. My house is below sea level as well.
How can we share Gert-Jan up?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm not feeling very cheery either, because the conditions on the ground there, and Gert is in the middle of it, seeing it and hearing from tenants all the time. The conditions are just the opposite of the way they should be in the current period of time. You know, I'm seeing most governments, not most, but a lot of governments moving in quite a different direction now, especially because of the pandemic. I'm starting to see this movement of maybe our system is broken, maybe trickle down didn't work, maybe liberalization was too liberal. I mean, even the IMF, I mean, they talk out of both sides of their mouth, but even the IMF has started to make these iterations. And then I'm hearing from you what's happening in Amsterdam in Netherlands, and it just seems so backwards. Selling off of social housing. I mean, it makes my blood boil, because of course we know how important and what a scarce resource social housing is, you know, so they should hang on to it, you know.
I mean, Thatcher did this in the 80s in the UK.
Exactly.
And now everybody in the UK says, okay, this was a major shift.
Yeah.
Since then, it's been hard to defend the right of poor people.
Like another thing happening here, because you mentioned Thatcher, is buy to let. A lot of small time investors. They have maybe 200,000-400,000 euro. They don't want to invest in shares anymore. The interests are very low. So what are you doing with, if you have some money? Invest in stones, invest in Amsterdam, and rent it out. So that made the prices go up by dozens of percent. Last year, the real estate prices in Amsterdam went up by 11% in 1 year only. That means if you buy a property of 400,000 euro, that's very average in Amsterdam, 1 year later it's 440,000. So the house made 40,000 euro in a year. That is more than the average income of an Amsterdam worker. So you can work whatever you want, but the house is getting getting more money
by doing nothing.
Doing nothing, exactly. Only being a house. It's ridiculous.
I mean, we are not a stock market podcast. Otherwise, you would tell people to invest right now in housing, because this is what don't do it. This is what people doing all over the world. And I mean, I meet a lot of people who say, "Wow, it's a great investment." And it's also, if you buy, you can see small players buying up properties and then they put them in packages to then sell them on to big ones like Blackstones and so on. I've said it before. People with money are not that creative. They are only looking for ways, and they copy each other. And we don't mind people getting rich if they invent amazing tools, if they take science to a new place, or they make a hit song. But this extremely lack of fantasy, lack of creativity, just putting money into our homes and making life so complicated for normal people, it's sick. Yeah,
we have some fight to fight the next couple of years. We have to change the dogma of market. We have to turn that into regulation and regulation. We have to think more about the interests of the residents than the interests of the investors. Housing may cost some money. It doesn't always have to make money for a government. Let's invest in good social and affordable housing. The lack of affordable housing, that's the biggest problem. These investors, they suck all creativity out of a city. They suck out all money out of the city because the money is going back to Luxembourg, Norway, or maybe even Canada, but America. So also the money is not being invested again here.
The money goes to Moneyland, which is like it's its own place somewhere out there. We have something to talk about, and this was an alarm report from Amsterdam Under Siege with Gert Bakker from the WOON NGO in Amsterdam. Thank you for being on the Pushback Talks, Gert. You should keep us posted because this is really scary, and let's hope the city can win the court fight, but then also that you can bring out more people. You should look at Berlin, where people actually go to the streets. Leilani, this has been another week of Pushback Talks.
It has been. I'm a little bit now. I'm not a little bit. I'm very worried now about Amsterdam and the Netherlands. And of course, as things are opening up with the pandemic, I'm starting to imagine a world where I might actually travel again and meet with groups. And I'm in the midst here of developing a set of human rights directives on how to deal with financialization. So what governments should be doing to address financialization. So maybe I'll put Amsterdam on my stop and we can have some discussions and bring people together to figure out how to put some energy and get tenants really fighting back.
Seems like a very good idea. You're welcome in Amsterdam.
Leilani, how do we fund this beautiful podcast, Pushback Talks?
With an ever-growing base of Patreons. It's growing and growing. I think we have 48 now. Is that right, Frederick?
Like that. So it's 48 people who donate a small amount of money every month, $2 a month or $5, and then it's like giving us a beer, or a glass of wine, and then we a little bit can pay for the cost. We're far away from paying the costs, but we're doing this because I can't do my work as a documentary filmmaker right now, so I'm just surviving. It's kind of a complicated time, but we try to stay relevant and try to keep smiling because it's too boring to be a pessimist. Anyway, Leilani, thank you for this week, and we should talk soon.
We will, Frederick. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, Gert-Jan from Amsterdam.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Pushback Talks is produced by WG Film. To watch Push, visit pushthefilm.com. You can also support us by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/pushbacktalks. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.